Pam, and I would like to welcome you to the Live Authentically show. My team and I help other people step into their authentic realities via a number of different modalities. This podcast is obviously one of them. We also have a Facebook group of like minded people committed to spiritual growth and transformation, and we would love to have you join us. We can be found at liveauthentically.today/FB. I am super pumped that last year I just launched my debut book, SOAR, SOAR. It's on Amazon, and it shows you how I partnered with the universe to create my new reality. So I'm super excited that on today's show, I have with me Rabbi Daniel Cohen. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. How are you doing?
Thank God. Very well.
Good to hear. Good to hear. I'm super excited about our show today. I'm so honored that you've taken time out of your day to be here. I was actually right before I actually watched a little clip of one of your videos, and I have to be honest here and say that I was tearing up. It was so incredibly moving, and I could just feel, feel how soulful and just feel that message coming through that is just so powerful and really just does need to be disseminated throughout the world. So I'm so excited to have you here sharing your message today.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, before we launch into more about you and your life and all of the amazing things you're doing in the world, I always start my shows off with the same question. And that question is, how do you live authentically every day?
For me, it's something that I reflect on a lot, which is really every day not letting it go by without hopefully expressing my values of who I want to be and trying to take the light that God has given me and all of us really every day and making a difference in the world. So I try to align my body and my soul every day, and we call live authentically through meditation, through prayer. I read the Psalms a lot. That for me is a way to reorient my life. I also study because I think it's important to get a sense of not what do I want in my life, but what does God want of me? All of us are here for a purpose. And I would say
Mhm.
the combination of those things, as well as really just doing intentional acts of kindness, for me is a moment of awakening every day that says I can make a
Mhm.
difference and help light up a corner of the universe. So all of those things for me inspire me to live authentically every day and get a good night's sleep.
I love
If I'm tired, I can't do it,
Absolutely.
and exercise and eat
Exactly.
well. All these things
Yeah.
are good. We can't neglect those things.
Yeah, actually, let's talk about that. That's a kind of a great segue into one of the areas that I wanted to talk about was this whole idea of self-care and keeping our pitcher full. And I'd like to talk about the daily routines and practices that you follow that allow you to lead from the soul.
Well, there is a phrase in the scriptures that says a cup should overflow with blessing, and it can only overflow if the cup is full.
Yeah.
I think about that a lot. And also, one of my mentors, um, she passed away a number of years ago. Her name was Esther Youngrice. She was a Holocaust survivor
Mhm.
and truly extraordinary in terms of her constant commitment and passion to elevating the souls within the Jewish people. And I
Mhm.
got to know her. I invited her to speak, and I was always just inspired by her energy. And I said to her, what motivates you every day to get up with that same sense of purpose and passion? And she said
Mhm.
she prays 3 times a day and quotes a verse from Isaiah chapter 40, where Isaiah writes, those who have faith in God, their strength will be renewed. They will grow wings like eagles. They will run and not walk. They will grow nor tired or weary. And she said, when we realize that we're here not for our own glory, but for something higher, we become God's partners and we are infused with strength that we never felt possible and
Yeah.
just feel so on fire. So for me, that's definitely something that I reflect on all the time. And I also, recognize when you talk about self-care, like sometimes I don't want to, I'll be very mundane, get on the Peloton, exercise because I'm so busy. But then I also know intellectually, and it does help that when I can take a walk, I try to walk a lot, not just formally exercising, but why should I get in a car for a half hour, for 5 minutes when I can
Mhm.
take 15 and smell the air and walk outside and decompress? it puts me in such a better space. So for me, that's a lot. And also certainly, eating well and, getting a good night's sleep. At the end of the day, none of us can burn the candle on both ends.
Right.
And if we make sure that we get enough sleep, we're going to come up in the morning with just a better sense of, we can accomplish a lot more awake than we can when we're half asleep.
Mhm. Love that. Love that. And that is so true. That's something I've come to realize over the years is how important sleep and rest and relaxation is. I used to try to be in sleigh mode, turbo mode all the time. And that's a model that just isn't sustainable. It just doesn't work. So ever since I started to prioritize sleep and have a nighttime routine and have an oil diffuser in my room and be cognizant of the temperature in my room and really consciously winding down at a certain time, I find that I bounce back with a renewed energy and have even more to give the next day. And so thank you for
Yeah, no,
sharing.
for sure. Yep.
One of the things I'm picking up on, it was pretty apparent early on, is, in your energy, you're very relaxed and very composed and very at ease. Although you're doing very powerful, driven work in this world, how have you been able to achieve this sense of peace?
Well, part of it is knowing that God doesn't ask perfection from any one of us. There's a phrase that says in Ethics of Our Fathers that it's not up to us to finish the task, but rather that doesn't give us an excuse for not doing the best that we can.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than live in a state of, and this, by the way, is a challenge, either regret about what I didn't do or
Mm-hmm.
anxiety about what's coming up in the future, I
Mm-hmm.
find that if I can just compartmentalize my mind to be fully present in any moment that I'm living with
Mm-hmm.
either the study that I'm doing, the person that is in front of me, the
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to really maybe unlock a little bit of light in the world that was hidden from the very beginning of time, that gives me a great sense of like strength of spirit and also peace that I'm doing the best that I can. And again, reminding me that God isn't asking for perfection. Nobody's perfect. But God is asking us to fail forward. This is phrase from John Maxwell, who's a leadership person that I like reading a lot. And it says also a righteous person falls down 7 times and gets up. The definition of righteousness is not perfection, but it's the ability to pick up the pieces and then try to learn and try to grow. So with that mindset, I can be at peace. Yes, was there more I could have done yesterday? There's always more that we could do, especially in the line of work as a person in the clergy. But I celebrate the small victories, and that gives me a great peace of mind.
Thank you for sharing that. That's so beautiful. I love that you're dedicating your life to helping people find their legacy and helping people find their purpose. What do you Let's dive into your core beliefs here. I want to really kind of dive in here because I love how spirituality, this whole idea, this whole commitment to living from the soul, really invites all different faiths to the table. And I love how you and
Mhm.
I, although we have different faith backgrounds, come together and still speak the same language, and we still anchor on the same core beliefs about life and why we're here. So let's dive into those. I'd love to ask you, what do you believe? Why do you believe we're here?
So I'll give you two ideas that I kind of live with all the time. One is more universal and
Mhm.
one is more personal. So there's an idea universally that teaches us, and this is found within mysticism, Jewish mysticism,
Okay.
that when God created the world, it says at the very beginning of the book of Genesis, there was this intense light that he brought to the world.
Hmm.
But the light was so intense and profound that the vessels in the world cannot contain the light. And those vessels broke, and God's light was hidden throughout the universe for all time, in all places, and in all people. And then God created humanity. There were no religions at the very beginning. God created humanity as a response to the hidden light. And every human being's responsibility is to uncover that hidden light, to bring healing in places of brokenness, to bring hope in places of despair, and light in places of darkness. And there is not a single person who's created in the world that has the exact same mission and the exact same circumstance in which to bring that light. And my mission today is different than yesterday, and it's different than tomorrow. So a core belief of mine is that every human being was created because God said, and this is also a very mystical idea, God brought a person into the world because he believes the world needs that person. Nobody is an accident. And that means that not only on the day that I'm born do I have to remember that, but every day that I wake up in the morning, it's not just enough to say that I believe in a higher power, whatever that is, but that higher power believes in me. And there's something for me to accomplish. Now, when we wake up with a sense of purpose and a sense of responsibility and accountability to reveal the light in the hiddenest of places, and that could be at the supermarket when you're getting, instead of like keeping our head down at the phone, looking up and maybe making that person's day. Or that could be, someone once said to me when their husband was in the hospital, very sick, and he had all these people coming in, and you would think, what can he accomplish when he's in the state of illness? His goal was people would leave his hospital room feeling better about themselves than when they came in.
Wow.
And he could do that with a smile. He could do it with hello. That could be a nurse, a doctor, somebody who's cleaning the room. That was his sanctuary where he brought heaven down to earth. And we can do that anytime, any place, anywhere. And that to me is probably one of the most important core beliefs. And going back to one other story, it says that before we are born, it says there's an angel that's inside of the womb and teaches us this secret of how we discover light in life and reveal that. And right before we're born, there's an angel that places its finger right underneath our nose. That's this idea mystically that we have this little indentation.
Okay.
And then the light is forgotten,
Mm-hmm.
but it's buried deep inside of us. At the very end of our lives, we're going to be greeted by an angel. And we're recognizing that angel because that's the angel that planted the light inside of us at the very beginning of time. And the angel is going to ask every human being two questions. Did you reveal the light that I planted within you? Did you try to become the best that you could every single day of your life? And did you share that light with the world every day? And if we can answer that question, regardless of our faith, that I did the best that I can with the gift of every day that God gave me to realize my divine potential. And every day I made it my focus not to treat any encounter as random, but as an opportunity to open up a little portal of light in that corner of the universe. All of us will have lives that are more enriched, lives that are living at a higher frequency, and certainly lead lives of legacy.
That is so beautiful. And I always say too, we don't all have to be, part of the clergy or a spiritual healer. It's not
Right.
in order to take part in the healing of the world and to help scatter this light throughout the world and shine this light and reveal it. So what are some other examples of small things people can do? Let's just say someone's in a really hard position right now and they're having a hard time and feeling in a place where they can't find hope. What is one small thing that they can do to help find their light, help find other people's light?
Um, I'm a big believer that every encounter that we have is not random. There's a purpose to it.
Mm-hmm.
And simply the ability to, I mean, everybody has to go shopping, right? You got to go to the supermarket. You're going to see people there. But if you see, and I'll give you a story that I wrote about in the book, where a woman, I was with a group of people and I said, tell me about your most moving moments in life.
Mm-hmm.
A woman said to me, she was at the supermarket and in the parking lot, out of the corner of her eye, she saw an elderly man with orthopedic shoes getting out of his car. And
Mhm.
she noticed that his laces were untied. And she went over to him and she said to him, "Would you mind if I help you tie your shoes?" And so she got down on the ground and with tears in her eyes, she said that moment was one of the most moving moments of my entire life. And I explained to her, because in that moment, you're the person that that individual needed most.
Yeah.
Mark Twain said the two most important days of our life are the day we're born and the day when we understand why. And you never know what that moment is going to be. Now,
Mhm.
that's when I talk about also in the book the whole notion of the Elijah moment, which means that we may not be able to change the world, but each and every one of us can change the world of one person. So if you're feeling a little bit of down, we have to open up our eyes in the smallest of ways
Mhm.
to actually give a little bit of ourselves, because that's the way the soul works. When we are other centered and emulate God and just do something which is maybe very simple, but for that person makes all the difference in the world, that will lift up our spirits because it will give us a greater sense of meaning. And the opportunities again are all over the place. I'll give you an example. Um, we started something in our community during COVID called Making Mitzvah Moments. I don't know if you know what a mitzvah is. A mitzvah is a kind deed. It's a way really to help ignite the world. And it
Mhm.
was a group of around 40, now it's about 130 people on WhatsApp, which is a social media mechanism to
Mhm.
instantaneously help people in need. So people would post something and say, well, this
Mhm.
person can't get to the supermarket. This person can use this bit of help. And then
Mhm.
automatically somebody would chime in. It almost became a race. I'll help that person. I'll help this person. And the amount of light that came out of it was amazing. And just recently, somebody put it in my head, well, there's a parking lot in Stanford where the National Guard and the Community Health Center is helping distribute 1,400 vaccines a day.
Okay.
So I found out that nobody was really giving food to the National Guard. They were kind of bringing their own food and all that. So
Mhm.
we decided to get local restaurants and people to help bring food to them. So for the past few weeks, we have a team of people that serves food to the National Guard. And I can't tell you, how much warmth that has brought simply from one idea that is
Yeah.
now beginning to metastasize in a positive way, where local schools are now putting posters together and bringing them to the National Guard. And it has inspired other communities to do the same thing. So a little idea of kindness can truly explode into not only lighting up our own inner life, but also lighting up the lives of others as well.
Right. And I love how it does have that magnetic quality. It just takes one little idea in one person's mind. We put it out there. And I think sometimes people don't quite know, how to help, or they don't know how to help others, find their light and shine that in the world. But one small idea, you put it out there and it's just literally like moths to a flame. And I
Yeah,
love there's that magnetic effect, that contagiousness, and it really does spread like wildfire.
yeah, and it's really also, I think, the key too is not waiting but anticipating. Look
Mhm.
at the people that you know, look at the stores that you go to, and just say, like, ask the question, what can I do to help? What
Yeah.
ideas do you have? I'm here. I have some friends maybe that can help. And it really will infuse us with so much hope and healing, and truly make a difference.
Hmm. And I think too, something else that I was thinking of while you were talking about this is this whole idea of, we don't have to have it all figured out before we start something, right? I mean, as long as we are adding value to the world, we've got an idea. We don't have to have all the pieces figured out. It'll happen. It'll unfold organically. So I'd love to hear you talk about that a little bit. If you ever have, at the onset of any of your great ideas, if you ever have any fears or doubts creep in, and how you quiet those and just move forward and just trust that you'll be provided with the resources and the ideas and the means as you go along.
Well, it reminds me of another verse. It's chapter 54 in the book of Psalms. Okay. So I think it's 54, 55. Don't hold me to it. But
Okay.
basically, where King David says, cast your burdens upon God and he will support you. The
Mm.
question is asked by the mystics. I mean, what kind of, they call this in Yiddish, chutzpah. What kind of like arrogance is this? And I need this, I need that. Cast your burdens upon God and he'll support you. You have an idea. You really think God cares? But here's the point that's made. Imagine I hire somebody to work in my garden to hopefully yield some fruits and vegetables there. And then the
Mhm.
gardener comes to me and says, I need a plow. I need this soil. I need all this. You will say to that person, you know what? Carte blanche. Whatever you need, I'll give you. What kind of question is that?
Right.
You're making fruits and vegetables not for yourself, you're doing it for me. If I see the gardener like sitting on his phone for 3 hours, this is I could use a little longer lunch break. You say, you crazy? All
Right.
you're doing is on your phone. So here's the thing. If we know that we are invested in a project truly to help make the world a better place, then let us trust and know that we're on God's team and God can do anything. Anything is possible. So that gives me, you might say, like the wind beneath my wings to say, you know what? I'm doing God's work. Will it work out? I don't know. But I know that if God wants it to work out, it'll happen. If it doesn't, maybe God's moving me in a different direction. So I think part of recognizing that we're doing things for the sake of a higher purpose does give us the strength to take risks for good things. It's not like
Mhm.
I'm risking here, I'm investing in an IPO and I need more money so I can buy another car.
Right.
That's not that important. But if
Right.
I'm taking a risk to help uplift somebody who's downtrodden or help, give a little bit of strength to somebody who's sitting there distributing vaccines, then I know that I'm doing something holy and that if God wants it to be, he's going to help me make it so.
Absolutely. And that reminds me of this whole idea of living in surrender, right? Just trusting.
Yes.
And I'd love to hear you talk about that concept, that importance of just of living in surrender and just the importance of just showing up every day and trusting.
Um, I think part of it, I have a friend who is a very philanthropic individual, and he once asked me, he has plenty of money, doesn't need any more. And he said, I'm debating whether I should retire or not.
Hmm.
And then he said to me, I've given a lot to charity. And I realized that if I continue to work, I can give more to charity. So I think I'm going to continue to work. And he called his foundation the Conduit Foundation because he truly feels, and it's a bit of the surrender piece, that I'm just the person who is God's agent, a pass through. I'm an angel that God put on earth.
Hmm.
And when we recognize that we really create the space for not what do I want, but if
Right.
I have blessings, with those come extraordinary responsibility and those talents and that wisdom, whatever I have, God wanted me to have. It's like giving somebody at a table. Imagine this. People always think it's so true. Let's say you're sitting at a table, which is family style food, and somebody puts in front of you 10 pieces of chicken on the platter. Nobody in their right mind would think that the 10 pieces of chicken are only for themselves. They
Right.
take one piece of chicken and then they pass it around the table. So just because you're a millionaire, what do you think? It's all for you? Take
Right.
what you need and pass it around.
Right.
That's
Right.
exactly what we're here for. And that's the mindset that we need to have. Because then God will say, you know what? I'm going to give you more chicken. I'm going to
Yeah.
give you more because you're actually using it not to buy another house. You're using it actually to help my people, my children. We're all God's children and we're all
Right.
part of that family.
Right. I love that. And I was talking the other day with a friend about this whole idea of retirement. And I said, retirement, that's actually a life event that I never want to experience. I said, and they kind of looked at me like, I had two heads, and I'm like, you know what? I don't ever want to retire because I don't view what I'm doing as work. I view it as serving. I view it as helping move humanity forward.
Yeah.
And I absolutely plan to slay it until my last day. And I think
Mhm.
that's where the magic starts to happen, when we can find that sweet spot. We can find where our purpose and our passion and profession intersect, and we can all, we can enmesh those all together, and you truly don't feel like you work. You feel like you serve. So I'd love to hear you talk about that concept, that idea of work versus service, and the importance of getting into that mindset of service, because that too, I believe, is a state of being and energy that anyone can get into, regardless of who you are, regardless of your role. I believe we all can embody that mindset of service.
Um, you raised a lot of good points. Uh, good. This conversation is divine. It was meant to be. So I feel
Absolutely.
that for sure. Um, One of the things to remember is that there's no such thing as retirement. A person can retire from their job, but
Mhm.
we never retire from life.
Yeah.
And as we've said a few times, that if I am alive today, it's for a purpose. Sometimes we define ourselves by what we do as opposed to by who we are. Like when
Mhm.
I say to somebody, like, what do you do? I don't want to hear that they're a lawyer, accountant, or this. What do you do? I bring goodness into the world. Now, you could do that as a writer, as a friend, as a homemaker, as a mother, as a father, as a lawyer, but it creates a much more uplifting, holistic way of looking at life. And then we don't get pigeonholed into thinking that when my career ends at whatever age it is, that I don't have renewed purpose. Now, God may be shutting one door, but he's moving us through a different door.
Yeah.
And I think that mindset also is critical, really, to a life of service. Because if somebody, let's say, is, older, 70, 80, or whatever, man, let's say they're not physically able to do what they did before, there's still a lot. I mean, with the power of technology today, we all know what it feels like when somebody sends you a note or an email and calls and says, I love you. I'm thinking about you. I believe in you.
Right.
I want to thank you. I'll never forget 30 years ago when you did this for me.
Hmm.
One of the exercises that I do with people sometimes is I'll say to them, a person had, 24 hours to live, what would they do and why? And it kind
Hmm.
of crystallizes the urgency.
Yeah.
And somebody said to me, if I had 24 hours to live, I would identify those people in my life that made a difference in my life, and I would
Hmm.
reach out and thank them. And then all around the room, everybody looked at this person and said, what are you waiting for?
Hmm.
Then he wrote me the next day. He said, every day I'm going to try to identify somebody in my life and I'm going to send him a note. And he said, it's been extraordinary. It could be a teacher, a friend. Um, and those are ways to reorient our mind to a life of service. King Solomon said many years ago, he said, we come into this world as a baby with our hands clenched. When a person dies, their hands open up. And he
Hmm.
said, the essence of life is moving from a state of holding your hands tight
Hmm.
to opening up your hands and giving. And the ways that we can do that are not necessarily financial. That
Hmm.
could be,
Hmm.
but it could be with our time, with our smile, with our warmth, with our words, and and living a life that way infuses it with meaning. No matter what our age, no matter what our job situation is, there's always somebody that could use a little bit of our strength and a little bit of our spirit.
Right. And what do you believe happens to our souls after we leave this earth?
Um, I believe that our souls are indestructible,
Hmm.
that our souls are eternal. Just like, for example, when somebody takes off a coat, the coat is gone, but the body is there.
Hmm.
The soul is the essence of who we are. The body is just the clothing. It's not really who we are. So we tend to define ourselves by our body because we live in a very material world. But when
Right.
somebody dies, it's simply the soul and body separating, but the
Mhm.
soul is really who we are. And we believe that the soul has a reunion with God. It's almost like God says to the soul, like, I put you in here for a purpose. There is some level of accounting. The
Mhm.
greatest joy that our souls experience after we physically leave this world is when we can say to God, I did the best that I could with the
Mhm.
life that you gave me,
Mhm.
to not invest in my body only, but to really help try to lead a life of meaning and purpose. The Talmud, by the way, in Jewish wisdom, gives us what the test is.
Okay.
It says that we're going to be asked certain questions. One
Mhm.
question is, were you on? And this is an interesting one. God is going to ask all humanity, were you an honest in business? Were you an honest person? Were you an authentic individual?
Mhm.
Were you a person whose inside was like your outside? Because that's a foundation of life. Then he's going to ask us, did we raise a family? Now, raising a family is not only about biological children. That means were
Mhm.
we mentors to other people? Did we guide other people?
Yeah.
Then God is going to ask us, were you a person who was committed to study, of growth? Or
Mhm.
you, or did you feel you were born perfect at 18 and you never had anything to learn? And then he's going to ask us, were you optimistic? Were you a person who brought joy to the world?
Mhm.
And then were you a person who made the world a better place? So I think having those in mind and recognizing that we can all accomplish those things and use that as a guidepost every day are a way to enable us. And here's the thing, from a Jewish perspective, the afterlife is not the goal. It's not that we believe we should be good people so that I can go to heaven. You know, yes, at the end, there is an afterlife, and hopefully it'll be one that'll be, we believe, very joyous and pleasurable because of what we did in this world. But the
Mhm.
goal is not the afterlife. The goal is healing this world. The goal is elevating this world.
Yeah.
And we also believe, by the way, there's another idea too, that the soul is aware of what's going on in this world, and that we are felt by those whom we impacted in this world, and
Mhm.
there is some level of connection, and it's possible that different people will embody pieces of our soul. We believe that a soul is like a candle that
Mhm.
lights many flames. My
Mhm.
mother passed away many years ago, and I feel her presence every day. She died over 30 years ago. And then
Wow.
there are moments when I might be stuck in something, and I'll just literally feel like she's giving me a bit of wisdom. And I also have a daughter who's named after her, and I feel that she embodies the presence. So souls are indestructible, but they also have the capacity to transcend time and space,
Yeah.
and very much present.
Yeah. And I believe that as well. I believe that, our souls are always able to connect with those who are in human form and help, they're able to play a role in helping ignite that spark and helping them do their soul work. And they can still act as
Yeah.
guides and mentors and still play a part in moving humanity forward, even after we're no longer on this earth. Would love to talk about your book. You are an author. Congratulations. I would love to hear you
Thanks.
talk
You
about
too.
that. I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
I said you too.
Thank you. It just cut out for just a second. Thank you. Yes, we're part of the Authors Club. Super exciting.
There you go.
So I would love to hear you talk about your book and just share a little bit more about that.
Sure. So the premise behind the book is a person's at a funeral, and they walk out of the funeral and they have a moment when they say to themselves, I hope they speak about me the way they spoke about that person. It's a moment that, regardless of our faith, we feel we want to do more with life. We want to focus not on what is urgent, but what is important. And then, about 15 minutes after we walk out of the funeral, we go back to life as usual. And we
Hmm.
forget about that awakening. We start getting on the treadmill all over again until the next awakening happens.
Okay.
So the concept behind the book, it's called What Will They Say About You When You're Gone?
Hmm.
Creating a Life of Legacy. I help people identify through a process of What is their best life? What is the kind of life they want to lead? What is the prototype? And then I engage people on a journey of 7 principles to reverse engineer their lives so they lead their life now for how they want to be remembered. Because I really believe deep in my soul that it doesn't take a lot of wisdom when we are experiencing a crisis like we have this past year. I would
Mhm.
venture to say that every human being, for the most part on the planet, had some awakening over this past year where they said, am I really doing in my life what's really what I want to do? Or am I
Right.
just like going on this treadmill?
Mhm.
The challenge, though, is that as we emerge from that moment, we kind of just jump back on the treadmill and we forget to be grateful. And I'll give you one example. If there's any gift that has come into um, clarity this past year, it's the gift of breath. There was a story about a man who was in his late 80s in Italy who had COVID this past summer. And thank God he recovered from COVID. And as he was leaving the hospital in Italy, the doctor gave him a bill for 5,000, whatever the currency is there, for the use of a ventilator for one day. And he started to cry as he was leaving the hospital. And the doctor looked at him and said, are you crying because you can't afford to pay the use of a ventilator for one day?
Mhm.
He said, no, that's not why I'm crying. He said, I'm now 87 years old and I have been breathing God's air for free for 87 years. And I never really realized how much one day's breath is worth. When we take a breath, that's God's way of saying, make the most of this beautiful life that you have. And if we can be more present in that way, and it's something certainly that I speak about in the book,
Mhm.
we will get angry less. We will be kinder. We will spend more time with the people that are truly important to us. And we're not going to be running after things that will give us counterfeit pleasure. The world sells us that you are going to be so happy if you buy this, if you buy that, if you go here. That is ridiculously false.
Right. Right.
Ridiculously false. And I'm sure there's people that are listening to this. Spend less time running around searching for that ethereal happiness because it won't bring it to you. The deepest happiness will be when you wake up in the morning, you say, thank God I'm alive. Thank God I have a purpose and I'm going to do the best that I can to really express. And you talk about it, living authentic values that reflect who I am and who I want to be. And in the book, I talk about how you do that, how you make choices that are courageous choices, choices that are not based on convenience, but on conviction, choices that are principled and not based on pressure. I talk about how do we lead a life in which we are creating memories all the time. You know, I do a lot of funerals as a rabbi, and I always am very moved when I ask a son or a daughter to tell me about their parents. What are the things that they remember, and what are the things they don't forget? And this is again, there was a woman who said to me, she was 50 years old. She told me initially she didn't want to speak about her mother because she didn't have a good relationship. I always asked the children to speak. I came to the service. It was a graveside service. And she said, I have 2 memories that I want to share. And this is one of them. I'll never forget when I was 8 years old, my mother came up to my room while I was sleeping. She shook me and she said, honey, get your coat on. It's snowing outside. Let's go out and play. And here was a woman, it was 50 years. And the one memory that she shares about her mother is that spontaneous act of love that now became part of who she was. And we have the capacity every day to
Yeah.
create these memories that will truly be eternal. So I really help guide people through leading us, leading authentic lives, not waiting for a moment of crisis to align our bodies and our souls, but rather a strategy to make sure that we lead our best lives now and then create an impact on a daily basis with those that we love and those in the world.
So beautiful. Thank you. Thank you
Welcome.
for sharing that. I'm super excited to check out your book and for all
Thank
of the wisdom, the deep, deep wisdom that you've shared with us today. You're doing such beautiful work in the world and are truly such a blessing to everyone who has the opportunity to cross paths with you. So thank you for being here and for everything that you do on a daily basis to serve humanity.
you. I have a question for you, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's turn the tables.
Yeah, like what inspired you to get involved in the notion of living authentically? Like, where did your awakening come from to kind of focus on this in your life?
So this has sort of been a long time coming. I feel like God slash the universe has been preparing me for this work for a long time. When I was my big, heart awakening catalyst, rock bottom moment was when I was 31. I lost a baby unexpectedly in the third trimester. And that really caused me to revalue or revisit every belief system I've ever known, every belief I've ever known. And I was stripped to the bottom, to the core, to be quite honest with you, physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally. So that's when I really started to wrestle with ideas of life and death and purpose and meaning and what's the why are we on this earth. And I was up until 3 o'clock in the morning just grappling with those answers or with those questions. And I started to do my soul work, if you will, when I was 31 and really started to do a lot of exploring deep, deep questions and deep concepts. So continued along that path. Also was blessed with more children. I have four children,
Yeah.
2 boys and 2 girls. So I was joked that I was knee deep in piles of laundry and doing the homemade baby food, homemade Play-Doh thing all throughout my 30s. But behind the scenes, there was a lot of that deep soul work going on. And in my early 40s, my husband and I decided to get divorced. And that was really the experience that really uncorked my bottle, if you will. God was like, you know what, you've been doing all of this work all along. Now it's time to step into this. Authenticity, authentic, that was the word that was bubbling up all throughout my divorce process. And
Mm.
I felt for the first time in a long time that I started to feel aligned and feel authentic and feel energized and empowered, liberated, untethered. And I felt like I thought this is the time, now is the time for me to step into this. Not when my kids are older. I'm not going to wait. I'm just going to dive into this, leap into this head first. And I feel like I have a specific purpose here, and this is the time. So I founded my company and wrote my book and started this podcast. Really, I do feel like my role is to play a role in raising collective consciousness. I have a huge responsibility in moving humanity forward, and that's what guides me every single day. And you know what? I didn't have a clue. I had been at home with my kids for years. I hadn't been in the workforce since my 20s, since I was in corporate America. I just trusted. It was a full state of surrender. It was a leap of faith. It was like, you know what? I don't know what a year from now is going to look like, 5 years from now is going to look like, but I don't have to know. All I have to do is show up. I feel like this is where my soul is pulling me right now. So I am just going to do this and trust that my path will be illuminated for me every single day as I take each step. And that's precisely what's happened. And it's put me in some of the most amazing situations in front of some people, include yourself included, obviously, who are doing such powerful work in the world. And I can literally feel the energy, feel the Holy Spirit, feel God, feel the universe working through them on a daily basis. And that's what continues to fuel me on a daily basis.
That is very inspiring.
Thank you.
Very
Thank you.
inspiring. God should give you comfort, but you definitely are aligned to be doing what God wanted you to do. I believe that we've only been on the podcast for 45 minutes, but we're kindred spirits. I appreciate it. And God should continue to bless you in all your holy work of helping, as you say, moving the universe to a better place. It takes a lot of us to do that, everybody to do that.
It sure does. And I'm delighted that our paths have crossed. So thank you for your time this morning. And I absolutely I would love to stay connected. So let's make that happen.
Likewise. Sounds good.
And if anyone would like to get in contact with you directly, what is the best way to do that?
So the best way is to go on my website, www.rabbidanielcohen.com. You can find articles, videos, and also just contact me that way, and would love to stay in touch.
Thank you. Thank you again for being here.
My
And to
pleasure.
all of our viewers and listeners, thank you. I believe that time is a choice, and I am grateful that you have carved out time to be here with me and Rabbi Cohen and listen to all of his infinite wisdom that he had to share with us today. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.